to the live today at Burr Cash Flow Investors. If you're not a member, make sure you become a member. And guess what? The next prize for the next drawing has been announced. It's a ticket for two, so first class ticket for two, up to $1,000 in value each. So you, your spouse, your kid, and how do you qualify?
Well, anywhere in the world they can fly with two tickets for where?
No, I said, hold on, let me specify this again.
Okay.
Right? I said that was Jennifer's idea, right? She's like, anywhere in the world. I'm like, I don't think so. Right? So it's a ticket for two, and each will have a minimum value of $1,000 each, right? So up to $2,000, airline ticket for two. What you do with it is your business. Hopefully you go on a nice romantic vacation, maybe down to Disney with your kid or two. But anyways, and how do you participate? Well, you invite a bunch of friends and or other fellow investors that want to learn more about real estate. We'll do the drawing in the next 60 days. So having said that, today's topic specifically is about negotiating with sellers. And before I talk about negotiating with sellers, there is a meeting that it's a networking for real estate investors meeting that is being held on March the 28th. That's 28th of March at 6:30 at D'Agostino's Plaza Pizza in the city. It's in Wrigleyville, 1351 West Addison Street. Again, that's D'Agostino Pizza, Wrigleyville, 1351 West Addison Street. That's in Chicago. So make sure you attend. Should be good times for everybody that likes to drink some beer, talk about real estate, and maybe grab something to eat. So again, remember that's D'Agostino's on March the 28th. Having said that, today specifically, we're going to talk about how do you negotiate with sellers. And by that, I mean is off-market sellers. So for those of you guys that don't know, this is Harry Owens. He happens to manage the National RE funding part of everything for everybody. So what exactly is National RE funding?
National RE funding is a hard money lender, commercial lending, anybody that want to do fix and flip loans or even refinance loans for 30 years on the back end. We can help you out with that, get you the best product, the best rates.
And the way it kind of came about was it was a need for mastery that we saw. So we're like, how do we do this, right? Because there's a lot of great lenders in the marketplace. And what we wanted to do with National RE Lending was kind of basically give you your cake and eat it too, which is that if you reach out to Harry, once he knows what your situation is, some lenders are good for, say, a bridge loan on the front end. If you're going to do a fix and flip, or if you're going to do a rental on the front end, buy the property, fix up the property, and then refinance it out. And the first lender, second lender may not be the same depending on the situation. Some lenders are easier on certain things versus other lenders are easier on some other things. Hence, we put that together. So we have loads of lenders that can do the loans for you. And Harry is your conduit, so you get the best rates that are possible in today's market. Having said that, if you want to contact Harry, you can go to
nationalrefunding.com. My email is harry@nationalrefunding.com.
Okay, great. So Harry, let's just jump into it, right? So you do some negotiating with sellers all the time,
yes,
right? So number one, let's first start with who are these folks that you're doing mailings to, right? You're doing mailings for me, right? Now, in that, are you doing just hundreds and thousands of mailings a month? How does that work, first of all?
Well, no, we kind of narrow it down to specific areas, specific counties. And I would say, as far as pieces are concerned, we're probably mailing about maybe about 3,000.
About 3,000, right? About 3,000 pieces, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. And what did we start with initially?
We started with maybe about 1,200.
About 1,200. Okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm asking that is I wanted to put that in perspective, that you don't have to do necessarily thousands of pieces of mail, because my budget initially was about $700 for mailings. We were not doing mailings as a business. And this is, mind you, in the Chicago market. This is not the Florida market where we operate and where, as everybody knows, we're building a lot. But this is not for that market. We're talking specifically about the Chicago market, right? That we're doing this building in. So, excuse me, that mailings in. So in that market, basically, we're doing a chunk of mailings now of on an average, right? Because this is not. Sometimes you get more responses, sometimes you don't get responses.
Right.
What is the response rate that generally you're getting?
With the amount of mailings that we're doing, I would say you might get about 5 to 8 people to contact you.
Okay, 5 to 8
I'm not
people.
Sure what that percentage is,
right?
About 5 to 8 people.
So,
yeah.
And this is, and some people claim that they get a 1% response. A 1% response would mean for every 100 pieces of mail that you drop, you get basically 1%. So if you drop 1,000, you get 10 calls. You drop 2,000, you get 20 calls, right? We don't get that many calls, right? I mean, we're just being very transparent with it. Maybe we don't do it right. I have no idea, right? But it certainly does work, right? You found a lot of great properties that I bought. I actually just closed on that Warrington property.
Yeah.
Right. That was you. That was Des Plaines. The other one in Chicago. I mean, there are a bunch of them that you have found.
Yeah.
Now, whenever we're talking about negotiating with sellers, right? That we get directly to negotiate with sellers. From your end, what are some of the good, I guess, good place that you start with? Because initially, whenever somebody calls you, what is that conversation like? So we're going to just pretend, right? So ring, ring, you pick up the phone. I'm calling. I'm like, hey, Harry, this is Andrew. I got your letter, and you said that, my property is a pre-foreclosure. What do you say? How does that conversation begin?
So I first start to ask them some information about the property, about the situation, so I can learn their motivation, right? And in this case, it's a pre-foreclosure. So I try to figure out what stage of the pre-foreclosure that they're in. Definitely get some information about the property, bed and bath, square footage. And also the first thing I want to do is set up an appointment to go actually look at the property.
Okay, got it. So how important is motivation? So if I call, because you're going to have kind of 3 types of people, right? One person, oh my God, why did you call me? Why did you mail me? How dare you get my phone number, right? How often does something like that, I mean, not phone number, excuse me, address. How often do you get somebody who's irate?
Surprisingly, very rarely.
Very rarely,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I can't even put a percentage on it, but it's almost none of the time.
Right. And guys, think about it. Once in a great while, yet you'll have a nut. Well, how dare you find out my property is foreclosure? Not in foreclosure. Great. Number one, if you're that nutty to actually pick up a phone and call somebody, and how much junk mail do you get?
Right.
You get a junk mail from your local pizza whatever place. And what are you going to do? Call them on the phone and go, hey, how dare you send me a coupon for pizza? Right? I mean, it's bizarre, right? If you're interested, you're interested. You're not. It's okay, right? And this is public data you're doing. So number one, you don't generally get people that are mad. So number 2, what about motivation and no motivation, right? What are the sorts of questions you're asking? So I call you, I'm like, hey, I just wanted to find out, I'm not sure, I'm talking to my attorney, and I think I got this handled, but I just wanted to find out your program. What do you say?
Well, I first kind of let them know what we do. We do a lot of cash deals here, so that kind of motivates them to take a listen and give us a chance to actually acquire the property. So we buy cash. We buy a couple of properties a month, and depending on the situation, how fast they need to move, maybe it's something.
So what you're saying is you're trying to dig for more information, right? It's just that somebody's called you. Clearly, if they call you, there's some motivation or curiosity there, right? So at that point, what you're trying to do is this. You're number one, trying to gauge where they're coming from, and you're hearing for cues, right? Number one, because you have the data, but a lot of times you may not have it right then and there, right? On your phone, they may be driving, whatever it is. And it's like, hey, we work with, and this is, you want to make statements that are not lies, number one. But you want to talk in generalities, right? This is kind of one of those NLP things, right? Which is you don't want to flat out lie to people, obviously, right? But you can talk in generalities. We buy a lot of properties and we work with a lot of homeowners that, kind of, sometimes it's unfortunate, it's a tough situation, that find themselves in a situation, and we want to figure out, hey, can we be of some service to you where it would work for you? And if we can buy the property, great, or we can maybe refer you to a good service attorney, somebody that can really help you, right? So when we kind of do something like that, what the whole point of that is that you're genuinely trying to be a problem solver, right? Rather than taking the approach where you're just going for the neck, you can't quite do that yet, right? Because you're trying to build that approach, build that rapport. So generally, how do you ask them like a series of pre-qualifying questions, like how much square footage, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
Do you put them through the ringer like that, or what's your approach?
It's not really a ringer, but I do want to get some key information just so we're not wasting each other's time, right?
Got it.
Because it might not be a property that fits the criteria that we're looking for. So I definitely want to know the bed and bath. I want to know maybe the age of the property, if they have that. When was the last time the roof changed, the mechanicals, things like that. Ultimately, I'm going to go out and see it, but if they can answer some of those questions up front, I can get a ballpark idea of renovation, things like that, to kind of help me think about, what the offer price will be before I actually get there.
Got it. Okay. So you want to have a little bit of background. Now,
Yeah.
Let me just ask you this. Say somebody has a property. They say, well, I bought it for like 700,000. I think it's worth $1 million. And, what do you do? Does the price range of the property affect whether you're going to go out and even have a conversation or no?
It does. It does. So if it's a situation like that where it's maybe north suburbs or in a good area where the values of the property are actually $1 million that
Right.
are renovated, in those cases, you know what, that doesn't really fit our criteria.
Okay.
Maybe you should look into maybe listening with an agent. I'll throw that out there, just to kind of help them out. But yeah, I wouldn't go.
Got it. Okay. So the reason I ask that question is a lot of times we're looking for properties that fit the medians, right? Meaning generally we're buying properties that are somewhere around, say, 150,000, 180,000, 200,000, 250. That's okay. Now, that doesn't mean that $1 million property may not be a great property, mind you, right? But you have to realize that our business model, the Mastery business model, so we're going to either do a flip, we're going to do a Airbnb midterm rental or a long-term rental, right? Generally, we want to basically keep the property on a rental portfolio, either short-term, midterm, or long-term rental. And in that situation, we're not necessarily looking for big flips. That's just not the business that we're in. That doesn't mean it's right, wrong, indifferent. If that's your business, that's totally fine, right? You may be one of those guys that, oh my God, the property's worth $1 million. I'm going to buy it for 400,000, put 300,000 work, and I'm going to make a lot of money. That's just not our business model in general. And so sometimes you end up passing properties that may have been great, or you may want to refer it to a good real estate agent, or if you're a real estate agent, God bless, maybe you can help them, right? Now, what about generally, and you're going to find this, right, that you're going to get more calls from C and D neighborhoods, right, than you're going to get from A and B neighborhoods. That's just statistically, you're going to have more leads in C and D neighborhoods than they're going to be in A and B neighborhoods. So how do you deal with that? Like, do you basically look at our area selection that, hey, is this a place that I even want to go? Do you refer it out to, say, someone like Blake, right? How do you do that?
Good question. So yeah, I still would probably refer that out, because even though most of us won't invest in those areas as a group, there are people that are investing in those areas, and it could be some solid deals. It could be some good margins there. So I'll still ask the same questions about, bed and bath and information like that. I'll still go out and take a look, depending on what the number in the situation is. And then, if it's something worth referring out, I'll refer it out.
Okay. So then the other part of it also is there are a couple of things come up, right? Initially, number one, think about it from this perspective, that when you're first talking to the seller, you got to get them talking. Right? You got to get them, and you got to get that out of the way. Oh my God, it's worth this much, and it's worth this and double. It's all talk. You just got to say, sure, I understand. It's great. It's okay. Right? You're just trying to get that hot steam off. Right? And then a lot of times you're going to repeat the same question, just you're going to put it a different way. So an example of that would be this, that let's just say it's Tom, right? And everybody will do it differently. Harry always comes across as a nice guy who's laid back. I tend to come across, let's just get to the bottom of it, and let's go, right? Because I don't have a lot of time, but a lot of time, what I'll always do is, if it's a woman, if she says her name is Sarah, let's say, I say, Miss Sarah, blah, 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 blah. What it does is, number one, it's setting up a professional relationship. I'm treating them not as a friend, as a professional person. Number two, what I'm going to start doing is trying to figure out that Ms. Sarah, the property is already in obviously, as a short sale, you're aware of it. Do you guys have a place already to move to? And did you already were you aware that the bank was starting the process? They're aware of it, of course, right? I'm asking that question as a rapport building question, right? And then by just dropping that in there, that hey, have you thought about? I mean, do you have a place to move to? Now, sometimes when people have a place, guess what they're going to say? Oh yeah, we're all set. We're in fact out. Blah blah blah. We really don't care about the house. It's not in good condition. I couldn't do. They'll give you, so they'll volunteer a lot of information, right? And I'm listening for those things, because when they're volunteering all that information, what am I doing? I'm like, okay, good. They're already out, or they're moving out. Now there may be the other side of person who's like, well, I'm never gonna move out. You got to take my dead body, right? There's that personality also, right? You know that they're gonna end up moving. Yeah. It's just a matter of that. Do I really want to deal with a person that may not be at the best state of their mind? Do you get those type of people also that want the information but are a bit hostile on the front end?
Yeah, you get those sometimes, but like you said, I just kind of let them give me the motivation. So I'll just do like a generic question. Hey, tell me about the property, or tell me about the situation, and then kind of just sit back and listen. And before you know it, you'll get to the meat and the potatoes of what the actual problem is.
Right. And a lot of times it's like, what happens is a lot of people will talk, and so you have different personalities. Some people who want to hear from you. Some people, they just love to talk. They like the sound of their voice. I would be one of those. He would be on the other side of it, right? And we're all different, and it's okay. You just have to kind of gauge who that person is. And a lot of people who are talkers, they're very dangerous to themselves, right? Because they themselves will talk into stuff. But if you talk them into something, they're not going to like it.
True.
Right? Would that be correct?
That is true.
Right? 100%. That a lot of times, they'll talk themselves into a sale or into a situation. You don't even have to do anything, right? You just have to sit back, listen, agree with what they're saying to, as long as they're kind of on track, or just direct them back to the conversation. Yeah. Right? And a lot of times, what you have to dig for is that you have to dig for motivation, right? By saying, I don't mean to offend you, right? Or would you be offended if I really kind of ask you, what is the bottom dollar, right, that you'd be willing to work with? And sometimes they're like, well, no, aren't you supposed to be the Mr. Investor? You tell me. That's why I called you, that you tell me.
Good point.
So how do you deal with that?
I was actually going to say that next, guys. So it's not as complicated as you think talking to. I know it can be intimidating to talk to people on the phone, especially when it's off market dealing with real estate. It's not as hard as you would think, right? So it's a simple conversation. You're just asking these questions. You want to act, like I said, bed and bath. You want to know square footage if they have it. You want to know when the last time repairs were done. I usually also ask, is there a mortgage on the property? If it is, and it sounds kind of personal, but people are willing. Remember, they're calling you off of a mailer that you sent out. So it's a warm lead. Obviously, there's some interest there. So,
and the other thing, a lot of times what happens is that you got to basically kind of put it in a context that they're willing to understand. So let's just say if you said, hey, would you be offended if I, as to what you're looking for? And sometimes, well, you're the Mr. Investor, you tell me. I want to hear what you got to say. I'm not going to give my house away. I'm like, listen, if you're going to give your house away, and now you got to do a level change, right? And this is important sometimes, that you got to say, something, listen, if you're going to give your house away, please let me know where the line is. I'm going to come over there, 24 hours ahead with an umbrella, and I'll stand outside, and they're going to laugh and chuckle, right? What you're doing is you're lightening the mood. Right? You're basically just doing a level change. I'm like, listen, reasonably, most sellers we work with, now what do? What I did was I took it away from and we said most sellers, right? Most people that we work with, Tom, nobody wants to give their house away, right? And that wouldn't be fair to you. It wouldn't be fair to us, right? Because of course, now we obviously need to make a little bit of money, right? And I would put that up front, where you're like, hey, I'm not doing charity here. We need to, of course, make a little bit of money. It's a business, right? Yeah. It's a business, right? But we need to be somewhere fair so that it works for you and works for me. And I don't want to obviously tell you on the phone, I haven't taken a look at the property. And for me to throw a number out, that probably wouldn't be honest, and it probably wouldn't be professional. Now, what did I just do? I basically said, hey, do you want somebody who's dishonest? I didn't say that, but I basically just inferred that, right? That, hey, do you really want somebody who's going to be dishonest, without saying that exactly in that manner?
Yeah.
So, and I kind of just presented it that, it would, and then they're like, no, that makes perfect sense. Most of the times when we're working with people, when we as in, because you may not have the confidence by yourself if you're new in real estate, right? So then you got to use the term we, us, ours, right? We're all going to do it together. So it, number one, looks larger than life.
Right.
Number two, it's not you're doing something for me. See, we need to work together so that it works for you, it works for me. And of course, you're trying to sell the house. We would like to buy the house and maybe make a couple of dollars or two, right? If you put it in that way, now it's not the shark, Mr. Investor, who's coming in and buying the property. That's not what it is. It's a team effort to try to get from point A to point B. And I'm going to go back to that again, that, Tom, I know you need a number, but have you thought about a ballpark, right? What is the lowest number you could work with? What is the lowest number you've thought about, right? And I'm going to present that same thing in kind of different subtle ways. And sometimes you have to ask 2 or 3 different ways, and you have to be okay with silence, right? Because that is the biggest problem for most of us, that you just have to sometimes just say, Tom, I know you're looking for a number for me, but that wouldn't be fair if I just throw out a number, because I don't want to be disrespectful. Is there a number that you can work with? Or is there a number that you could live with? And then you got to just be, and let them talk, right?
That's the perfect way to handle that.
Yeah. And you got to let that just rest there, right? And you got to be okay with it. And most people are going to say something, right? And when they say something, hopefully they throw out a number, or hopefully they throw out a range. And then I would follow that up with, a lot of times, Tom, people have talked to a real estate agent. They may have somebody in the family that is an agent, or maybe acquaintance. But what they found is it takes a lot longer. You have to clean up the house. Bunch of people going to troop through your damn home, right? And now, how did I put it? A bunch of damn people are going to troop through your home, and then who knows if it's going to actually close or not. Guess what they're going to do? Oh, no. I don't want nobody going through my house. That's why I didn't list with a damn realtor, right? I mean, this is how people talk, right? And so now that for whatever reason, the best option for them would be actually to stick the property on the MLS.
Right.
That's just a fact. Why do you think a lot of times people don't do it? Because we've had so many instances where people could have put the property on the market, sold it for 35-40% more than what we bought the property for. Right. Why? And these are not stupid people, right?
Well, I mean, most of it is because of what you just said. They don't want a bunch of people trolling through the house and listing it with an agent, or maybe making some minor repairs that the agent usually would probably request that they would do to actually get a little bit of market value for it at the time. Another thing is they may be out of town. Sometimes you reach these sellers, they don't live in town, so they don't have the time to come and give people access, and the agent, so they just kind of want to be done with it. So.
And a lot of times people are just plain embarrassed, right? People are embarrassed about the condition of the home. They're embarrassed about the situation. They don't really want a lot of people trooping through their home. They just want to get it over and done with, right? And that happens a lot. Right, that happens a lot in pre-foreclosures. It happens a lot and a lot of times you would think that it is a financial situation. In fact, some of the best deals that we've bought are not necessarily financial situations. No. It's like the property in Chicago. This attorney called, right? The association had foreclosed on the property. The guy hadn't paid 7 years worth of his association fees. Can you imagine that? 7 years, right? And the guy has been dead. He's gone. Now the association is trying to do something, right? That's the property over on Dewey, right? That I bought. Literally, that property, $90,000 is what I think I paid for it, right? $90,000 I paid for this property. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 3rd level condo. I mean, when I tell you a block, literally a block from the Lake Michigan, like literally a block on 2E, right? And the appraisal on back after I did about 30,000 in work in that property, 35,000 in work, appraisal on it came back 322. Right? And you would think that this was not a financial situation. The guy was just a nut. The attorney could care less. He's like, man, I want to get rid of the property. I don't care. I just want to get rid of it. So a lot of times you have to think about what is the motivation, right, of that particular attorney. There was another file I bought where the attorney called, same guy. And he's like, man, I need to get rid of it. And it was actually a female attorney in his office. And she's like, when can you go take a look? I'm like, listen, I'll send somebody today. She's like, it's not the best area to go in. And this was not necessarily a bad area, but not necessarily the best of the areas. Now, I know I didn't want the property to keep, but I'm like, she's like, we've never been in the property, so we have no clue. From what we can tell, it's an absolute horror. Right. And she's like, it would be nice. She's like, we've been trying to get somebody to go rekey the property, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, we'll go ahead and rekey it for you and we'll get the pictures for you and I'll send you a copy of the key. Now, what did I just do? Right. I just got, she's like, you would do that? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, for the court, and this property was going through, it was a court case. She's like, I'm going to have to go out there, but I need to get somebody, a male acquaintance from the office of a law office. Now think about it. Lawyers are not in the business of real estate, right? They're not going to some of these areas, which for me to send somebody, right, and say, hey, one of our guys, and say, hey, Juan, can you go meet this person over there, blah, 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 so she feels safe, right? She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you would offer that. I'm like, yeah, it's not a problem. I'm like, in fact, what do you need? She's like, well, we really need a key and we really need proof, a video and some pictures to show the court that the condition of the property is really bad. And that's it. She could care less, right, what that property was worth. I bought that property $25,000. $25,000. Right? I wholesaled that property for 102.
Nice.
102. Why? Not because, now, could they have gotten the property emptied? Could they have done a lot of things? Yes. But what was the motivation of the seller? I want to get rid of the headache. I'm still going to get paid on the case, right? It doesn't really matter what it sells for. And the court looks at this monster two-unit property that's an absolute disaster. And guess what they said? Oh my God, it should be just torn down. There's no reason to tear the house down. It's a great property, mind you, right? But it's not something. So a lot of times it's understanding motivation. Now, when you get there, right, you've never met these people before, right? You get there. So let's say that lady from Buffalo Grove. Okay. She was a total nut, right? I mean, she was certified nut. And she met you. You didn't drive her nuts. She was just nuts. She was already nuts, right? So how do you handle those situations? Because this is a little old white lady. She's in her probably 70s or 80s, whatever the hell, 80s, right? So as it is, you're going to get nutty, right? How did you build that rapport? Because you went through a lot to get that lady to kind of go along with what you, and she's talking to a bunch of investors at the same time.
Exactly. So, I mean, she started with the phone conversation the same way we talked about. I asked her the key questions. She called me with a motivation of wanting to get rid of the property. She had a tenant in there before that had moved out and didn't tell her. They was gone for maybe months or maybe even a year before she realized they were gone. And she was just tired of paying property taxes and keeping up the maintenance and was ready to just sell it. So long story short, I met her at the property. When we get there, she has like a sandwich bag full of keys. None of them worked. None of them were the keys to the door. So I had to climb through the window. Luckily, the kitchen window was open. Climbed through the window. Ended up going to Home Depot, changing the locks for her, like you said. I never changed the lock before, but I figured it out. Changed the locks. She let me keep a copy. That way, now I can bring, if I'm going to wholesale it, I can bring people through. So I'm building that rapport, doing nice things for her, climbing through the window, driving her to Home Depot, picking out a lock. I drove this lady to the cemetery to visit her sister's grave. So whatever it takes, it was a great deal, but So
no, and here's the interesting part, right? Yeah. Sometimes, and obviously, you're not going to do that for for most people. But this is, guys, in this situation, she's an older lady, right? She probably doesn't have a lot of help. Maybe her kids are away, whatever, like those type of things, right? And as you get older, you become very stubborn and you become very set in your ways, right? And so she's not going to listen to you. So you're going to have to probably repeat the same thing 9 different times. And that you got to build up the rapport, right? With older people, that's a big thing, right? You got to build up the rapport. They have to trust you. They have to like you, right? This is a big deal. Oh my God, you kind of remind me of my grandson, you know? I mean, it's one of those things, right? That as long as they like you, they will do a lot more business with you, not because necessarily the money, right? It's because they like you. It's that human factor and where you need to connect. So, I mean, you got that property and you charge the wholesale fee. Bernadette, Robert flipped it on the back end. They made 80 grand, you made 5 grand, right? But I mean, you could have made, you could have made 85 grand on that deal if you knew what you were doing, right? So it's, the point being is a lot of times we think it's about the money. A lot of sellers will say it's about the money. Yet a lot of times it's about rapport, right? Happens all the time. Now, you've seen me lose deals, right? Where, I mean, I just messed up, right? I just messed up. And that's going to happen, guys, right? Nobody is, there's a deal in Des Plaines. Remember that house, 2-story house? Right? And the guy wanted 215. I offered him 200. I offered him 207. He sold it to another investor. And he says, oh my God, Andrew, you guys were the best, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? Because somebody met his needs at 210. Right? And I just messed up, right? 100%. And that's going to happen to you, right? If you do enough of doing this, sometimes you can do all the things right. I thought maybe we were just going to get it for 207 or so. And by $3,000, I lost the deal, right? So now when you go out to the sellers, are you taking, so Dan, right? If we look at Dan Clarkton, he always takes a contract. He's like, man, I haven't done all this work ahead of time to not have a contract there. So he's going to be there for 3 hours. He's going to get the contract signed. And about 85-90% times he gets it signed right then and there. But he'll spend the time that it takes. What about you?
No, I've tried that approach in the way that I build my rapport. They really don't want, they're not in, not say not in position, but they kind of don't, they're not comfortable signing the contract right then and there. So I kind of take my time a little bit. And it's a little bit more risky. Of course, it's more probably with Dan, if you can get it done right then and there, it's more effective. But it still works. You can, like you said, there's multiple ways to do it. So I don't take a contract, but I do build that rapport. And I do let them know, hey, I'll be getting back to you maybe later today, no later than tomorrow with that offer.
Okay. Got it. And so, because now you've gone, seen the property, you're going to take pictures, right? And then now you're going to come back and look up the comps. Right. And then based on that, you're going to make the offer at that point.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And then once they decide, and sometimes do you have to do multiple follow-ups?
Yeah, sometimes you have to, because they're getting a lot of mailers. Some of them get a lot of mailers. Sometimes you're lucky and you're the only letter that they got. But if they're getting a lot of mailers, you definitely want to follow up frequently. You want to follow up when you say you're going to follow up. If you say you're going to call them within the day or two, I mean, not the day or two, but within that same day or the next day with that offer, definitely want to do that so that they know you're serious. They don't know you're not just kind of messing around, because they'll be quick to go and go elsewhere with the deal.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Got it. And as far as now getting them to sign a contract, right? Do you go back over there? Do you send it in a DocuSign? How do you do that?
Either way. Sometimes you're dealing with, like we said, maybe an older seller who's old school. They don't do emails and nothing like that. So if it's worth it, I'll definitely drive out there and physically. I've done it a few times where I would drive the contract over, wherever they are, and have them physically sign it. Or definitely we can do DocuSign for sure.
Got it. Okay. So this is going to depend on who the seller is, what their level of sophistication is, age-wise. You know, sometimes they need the warm and fuzzies, right? Rather than just being cold on an email, signing a bunch of DocuSign. So that's going to depend. And then what about earnest money, right? Generally, are you offering a lot of earnest money, less earnest money? How do you handle that? Because I know Dan offers $100, $150, $200 earnest money. Right? How do you handle that?
Earnest money, I would at least do $1,000.
Okay.
At least, but maybe more depending on the area of the property and how bad we want it. Probably offer them a lot more than that, but at least $1,000, I would say.
Okay, but do you have to offer that?
You don't have to. You don't have to. But
Right.
yeah, I figured so they can feel like that you're serious. You want to offer, a decent amount. Maybe $500 to $1,000, I would say.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and again, there's a different philosophy in this, in trains of thought. Now, mind you, we're looking at a lot of properties in A areas, right? In B plus areas, right? These are really, really, really good areas, and a lot of times, it's not worth losing the deal. Now, mind you, when I started early on, I started in real estate as a real estate agent. So I was used to putting up $1,000 earnest money. And we never give the earnest money to the seller. We're always going to post it either with our own attorney, with the title company, because I don't know, the seller may disappear tomorrow. Right? I mean, I don't know the seller. I don't even know if they own the property at that time. Right? So this is important that you're not going to give that money to them. You're going to put it for a safekeeping at a third party with a trust account. Right? So that becomes really, really important. Now, we will offer a lot of times a high amount of earnest money because I want to get the deal done. Right? I do not want to lose the property at all whatsoever, period. If it's a good property, why the heck am I going to go play games with it? Right. So that's kind of what it is. Anything else you can recall?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's not as difficult as some may think to negotiate or to talk to these people off market. Just pretty much make sure you're asking those key questions that you want to know as an investor. If you have any experience as an investor, you kind of know those questions: the bed and bath, the amount of renovations that's needed. Is there a mortgage? Is it current? Is it free and clear? But if you don't know any of those terms and it's not familiar to you right now, that's a good reason to come to our meetings. Our meetings are starting back up this Thursday.
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, you can always attend the meetings, be a part of this whole thing. But negotiating with sellers a lot of times is building good quality rapport, right? And making sure that you present yourself in a way so that you're basically serving their needs as well as serving your needs, while making sure that, say, hey, this is a business. We need to be able to buy this at a number that makes sense. Right. So in terms of a profit and a loss, that's not how you should be talking. You should be talking in terms of so that it makes sense. It's fair for you and it's fair for us. Right. I mean, that's kind of what it is that you have to. And even if some sellers may not go with you for whatever reason, you got to leave that door open. So even if they decide to go with somebody else, it's like, oh, great. I wish you nothing but the best. But if anything changes, let us know.
Keep us as plan B. Yeah.
Keep us as plan B, right? And because you're going to get, and sometimes some sellers take a little bit of time, right? Where this warranted property, right? You're following up for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, they got the contract signed. Finally, they got the things done. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of time, right? Having said that, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's live. Harry, thank you again. Again, for your financing need,
nationalrefunding.com.
Yep.
Harry at nationalrefunding.com.
Right. So, and you want proof of funds? That's what you do. Go to National Refunding, fill out the small questionnaire. You don't need to put any credit information, right? We're not pulling a credit score, but you'll be able to get a proof of funds. So when the real estate agent picks up the phone and calls and says, oh, is this person approved? Then Harry can say, yes, based on the information that we have from them, yes, they're approved. So that it'll help you make offers, because that's one of the biggest things that stops people from making offers. They're like, oh my God, we don't really have the money. Having said that, guys, thank you very much. Again, make sure you invite your friends, family, other fellow investors to be a part of the Burr Cashflow Investors Group. We need your help. We need your love. We need your support to be able to grow, expand the community, and to be able to keep making a difference in terms of our personal and your real estate investing. And remember, the next prize is going to be a ticket for 2 people up to a value of $2,000. Thanks a bunch and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Harry.
Yep.